Hi, I'm Dr. Chad Larson. I'm just taking a moment in between patients, so I'm going to try to make this as quick as I can, but I thought I'd just walk down here to the beach. It's such an amazing day out. We had a really kind of rainy day here in Southern California yesterday, and it's just a totally beautiful day today. So the topic of the discussion today is these 10 bills that have been proposed by the California legislature. And this is important whether or not you're in California, because oftentimes what starts in California kind of disseminates across the rest of the country. So these are important to know no matter where you are in the country. And when I've asked people if they've heard of these, friends and patients and family members, so far the answer has been no across the board. Nobody has heard about these. So you need to know about these, because these can literally affect you and everybody you know in California. And again, even if you're not in California, oftentimes things start in California and then kind of spread across the country. So these are things that you need to know if you live in the United States. So these are California proposed bills. I'm just going to kind of read them, because I just want to get them right so that you can have a clear understanding of what these bills are proposing. So the first one is called SB 871, and this one adds the COVID vaccine to required immunization schedule for all private and public schools, regardless of whether these vaccines receive FDA approval, and also regardless of whether or not the child has had COVID. In other words, has natural immunity. So they really only have, downside, because as the CDC even admits that natural immunity gives you 3 to 5 times better protection against COVID than the vaccine-induced immunity. And we know that this number is close to 60% of kids in the U.S. Have this natural immunity. So they're going to subject all kids in school, public and private, to a non-approved medical intervention if they want to attend school. The next one is AB 2098. This classifies any medical opinion that runs contrary to the establishment's COVID narrative as misinformation, and subjects physicians expressing such views to the charge of unprofessional conduct, which is subject to discipline by the Medical Licensing Board. So the state actually gets to decide what is scientific fact. And we know that facts have changed many, many times against, the common narrative. Like, if you get vaccinated, you can take your mask off because you will no longer transmit the virus. We know that ended up not being true. It'll stop viral replication. We know that ended up not being true. You need 2 vaccines and then you're good to go. You'll have full sterilizing immunity, and then you got to get a 3rd shot for a booster, and then now they're saying you got to get a fourth shot, a 2nd booster beyond the first 2 and 3. So we know that these facts are, every fact has a half-life, and the half-life of these facts are very, very short. SB 866, this is number 3. Lowers the age of COVID vaccine consent to 12 years without parental notification or consent. So now the state gets to be a surrogate parent for you and make a decision about your kids' health and future health. And 12-year-olds are not cognitively and emotionally mature enough to make a informed decision about a medical intervention that could literally affect the rest of their life. So think about that one. The next one, number 4, is SB 920. This authorizes the medical board to inspect a doctor's office and medical records without patient's consent. So this completely violates a federal law called HIPAA. And this HIPAA law protects your private and personal and health information that cannot be disseminated without your approval, without your consent. And so this bill would completely override your personal and health privacy information. Number 5, SB 1464. This requires law enforcement to enforce all public health guidelines or lose their funding. Requires, that's a much different word than authorizes. Authorizes is what it has been in the past during COVID, and police officers were left to their own personal judgment and critical thinking and their own thought process to enforce something. Now it says, no, we actually know better than you as a police officer. We know better than you. We're going to make the decision for you. You're no longer authorized. You are now required to do what we tell you to do. Number 6, SB 479 requires schools to create long-term testing plans, test children without parental consent, and report test results to the California Department of Public Health. That one kind of speaks for itself. Number 7, SB 390 prohibits any person or entity from making statements the government deems misleading by any means, including the internet, ads, etc. So the state is the arbiter of all things science, and as we know, that politically appointed scientists are led a lot more ideologically than scientifically, and we've seen that over and over and over again. Number 8, SB 1184. This authorizes school health personnel to disclose children's health information to a third party without parental consent. So again, this is the state saying, parents, you actually, we know better than you about your child, so we're going to make the decision for you where medical information, very sensitive information about your child, we get to decide actually where that goes and not you. Number 9, there's just 10 of these. Number 9, AB 1797. This creates an immunization tracking system giving all governmental agencies complete access to vaccination records for all citizens. And number 10, AB 1993 requires proof of COVID vaccination for all employees and independent contractors working in California. So when I mentioned at the beginning, if these pass, these will affect you and literally everybody you know. That's really the key one that I'm referring to. It forces, a novel, unapproved medical intervention on anybody who wants to work in California. And this is starting in California, but as I mentioned earlier, oftentimes what starts in California starts to, probably go to first sort of the blue and purple states first, and eventually will be adopted by more states beyond that. So these are really key interventions that are massive overreach by the state. They're saying that we know more than you as the parent of your kids. We know more than your pediatrician, your kid's doctor, who should, intimately know the health and medical history of your kids. They're saying we know more than you, we know more than your doctor, and we're going to go ahead and make all these decisions for you. And that's for kids who are by far the least affected by this virus. So they're taking the most stringent, rules and applying them to the population that is least affected by this virus. And who, by the way, as I mentioned a little bit ago, like 58 to 60% have natural immunity. So they have only downside from getting this vaccine, because statistically, healthy kids have not died of COVID-19. Healthy kids. And out of all kids, more than 1 in 1,000 get some kind of adverse event from getting vaccinated. And only 1 in 500,000 die from COVID. And that includes, kids with very severe pre-existing conditions. When you take them out of the equation and you consider just healthy kids, the statistic is basically zero. That 0 healthy kids have died from COVID. And remember that the vaccination does not reduce transmission, does not reduce viral replication, and the vast majority of kids have had COVID and have natural immunity. So all these things should really be taken into consideration. You really don't want to be silenced as a parent. You want to make sure your doctor is not being silenced as their healthcare provider. So have a look at that information. There's some different things that you can do. Just, be informed. That's kind of the key thing. Be informed. Look in this information. Take a look at the bills yourself and come up with your own conclusions. There's different groups like the Unity Project that is, sort of offering different things if you are frustrated by this and you want to do something about it. I would check out their website, things you can do. So anyhow, I will keep reading the studies and bring you the information. Until then, keep it real.